Tangyuan. Tangyuan. I think I got that right. I don't know. And welcome back to my kitchen. If you are new here, my name is Kaylee, and today in my kitchen we are making dessert. And no more durian experiments. Today we're making a Chinese dessert called Tang Yuan, and the literal translation is like soup balls, but often you'll see either at grocery stores when you buy them, or if you're eating out on a menu, they're sometimes called glutinous rice balls. Now don't worry, these are 100% gluten-free. So for all of my health fanatics out there, this is a healthy dessert recipe for you. They're just called glutinous rice balls because they're very sticky and nice and stretchy. It's all about the type of flour that we're using. They're traditionally served in some kind of nice, sweet, warm broth. It's chewy on the outside. You can put lots of different fillings on the inside. Today we're gonna be working with peanut and black sesame. You could also do red bean or any kind of filling that you like, but that's what we're sticking with for today. For today's recipe, we're going to be using sugar, of course, because we are making dessert. Now, traditionally, these are made with some kind of lard, but today we're gonna be using coconut oil as a substitution. It's a healthier alternative. It's also something that a lot of people already have in their kitchen, so we'll be using that. The key for this recipe is the type of flour. So it's called glutinous rice flour. It's a rice flour, so it's gluten-free, but it's glutinous because it's very stretchy. We're also gonna be using some peanuts today to create one of our two fillings. These peanuts that I got have no skin, no shell, they're not roasted, no salt, they're totally plain, and I did roast some of them myself in the oven. So set your oven to about 350, put those in there for about 12 to 15 minutes, again, depending on your oven, and then take them out. It'll just make sure they're nice and fragrant, and later on when we crush them up, it'll be a lot easier. Last thing we're gonna use today is some black sesame. Now you could just use black sesame seeds and either crush those up in a food processor or in a mortar and pestle, totally up to you. I was able to find some black sesame powder, so I had this in my pantry already, so we're gonna be using that for our second filling. And last thing, water, that's it. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with water, 6 ingredients. Super simple. For today's recipe, I'm just gonna be using the coconut oil that's already at room temperature. That way I can just mix it together and kind of create a paste. Starting off with the coconut oil, 2 tablespoons in each of our small little ramekins. Now this video isn't sponsored by Costco, but like Costco, if you wanna sponsor me, just give me a call. Two tablespoons of sugar. Oh man, that smells good. Very sesame-y. Into one of our small dishes for the filling, we're gonna put 2 tablespoons of sesame powder. Oh baby. Now that the peanuts, so the roasted peanuts, now that they've cooled down just a little bit, I'm gonna actually grind these up. If you have a food processor at home, you can use that. Today I'm gonna go old school. We're using our mortar and pestle. First off, I don't have a food processor. And second, why not, right? Keep some authenticity to it. So we're gonna grind these up, not until it makes a powder. We do wanna have some small pieces. We just wanna have finer pieces. All right, time to add in our peanuts. So 2 tablespoons of that. Ooh. And now we mix. We're gonna mix this up till everything is nice and well incorporated, and then we'll talk about how to form this into our small little rounds before we make our dough. Now that our 2 fillings are mixed up, what we're gonna be doing now now is taking out just a little bit, so maybe a teaspoon amount of each, and rolling it into small balls. These ones we're gonna set aside and actually chill in the fridge. That way later, when we're constructing everything, the coconut oil isn't melting down and making a giant mess. It's gonna be a lot easier to wrap, and so that's just what we're gonna be doing for today. It's about to get messy. I'm gonna super quickly pop these into the freezer. You can definitely tell that the sesame holds its shape much better. The peanut leaves something to be desired. Time to make our dough, and for this recipe, super duper simple. With the glutinous rice flour, we're using about 1.5 cups of this, and then about a cup of water. Now I did a test recipe before and used just sort of lukewarm water out of the tap, and I found that that wasn't warm enough to sort of activate the rice flour and get it nice and stretchy. Today we're gonna be using about 1/2 cup of hot water, and then 1/2 cup of just warm water from the tap. Before I add in the warm water, I'm just gonna mix this together and sort of see what I've got so far, how much more water to add. Although there are measurements attached to this recipe, it really is by consistency. So if you find it's way too dry, add a bit more water. Similarly, if it's too slimy or too wet, then add a bit more flour. So it's been a while that I have been kneading and mixing my dough. When I first mixed everything together, the dough was way too sticky. So then I added a bit more flour, still a bit too sticky, added more flour, and then just continued to knead. So you can continue to follow along with the recipe, but just adjust it as you need. If it's too wet or too sticky, then add more flour. If it's way too dry, then add more water, just a little bit at a time, until you've got a nice sort of silky, smooth dough like this. It feels great. It's like the world's nicest Play-Doh. It should feel nice and smooth. It's one cohesive piece. It does sort of nicely pick up the remaining dough and mixtures and flours that are on the sides of the bowl. It's nice because you can press into it. It doesn't stick to your fingers, and it doesn't really bounce back too much. Now it's time to portion off our dough into small little rounds. So about 1 inch, I would say, in diameter should be enough to cover all of our filling. And once these are set over to the side, we're just gonna cover them with a damp paper towel to make sure that nothing dries out. And for my next trick, we're going to keep these from drying out. I just took the fillings out of the freezer, and I'm gonna very carefully try to make sure that none of them are stuck together. I don't wanna let this thaw too much, otherwise everything's going to melt down again. So I do wanna keep these as cold as possible when I wrap them, just to keep the mess to a minimum. But right now, just very, very carefully, either with a knife or a fork, just going through and making sure nothing is stuck together. At this point, don't worry if the filling doesn't look beautiful and spherical and perfect. It's going to get wrapped up, it's going to get cooked, and really, it's all about the taste. I think it's go time. It's time to start wrapping, so I'm gonna take this damp paper towel off. Now I did see one tip, and I think this is gonna work probably in our favor, is instead of wasting this and throwing it out right now, I'm gonna leave it out. That way, as I'm wrapping, I can kind of wipe off my fingers if I find I'm getting either black sesame or peanut stuck to my hands, because I don't want that on the outside. I wanna make sure that's all on the inside. We want it to be beautiful and just white and crisp on the outside. So what I've done first is I've just kind of warmed it up in my hands, made it nice and smooth, and then I try to flatten it out with this sort of curved part in my thumb. That way at least I can get almost a little bit of a divot. Then I'm just working carefully to move around the outside. I've also seen a way where you can put it in here, okay? Kind of making one of those, you know what I mean? It's almost like a little bowl shape, somewhere perfect for the filling just to fit inside. One thing that's really important is making sure that you don't flatten out the bottom too much. Kind of like when we made dumplings and we would roll out the dough, we'd roll out the edges because we want that nice support to hold in our filling. So it's okay if the bottom's a little bit thicker. That way I can put my filling inside. Here, because our dough is nice and stretchy, you might have some overlapping pieces, so that'll also be thicker. Now it's nice and even and very carefully rolling it together. These are quite delicate, so yes, this is not slow motion, this is real speed. I'm gonna carefully roll these ones up because I wanna do my best to make sure that they don't pop back open. But now you can see this is one that I did making sure everything was even around the outside. This was my first attempt where I flattened it out as much as I could. Here you can start to see the black sesame coming through the bottom. That one's probably going to explode when I cook it. This one, you can't see the filling at all, so it's really structurally sound. That one is good to go. I'm excited to eat it. Okay, our sweet rice balls are all wrapped up. So I've got my sesame rice balls in the front, the peanut in the back, and this little group back here, I'm gonna call them my duds. I'll probably cook them at a later date, but they're more than likely going to explode, especially if you can see the filling through it. You know that that one might be the sacrificial lamb, but that's okay. It does take some practice. It's okay to have a few duds. It's almost like when you make pancakes, right? The first one is just a practice run. So right now I'm heating up some water. When you're cooking these ones, you're going to boil some water. Once it's at a boil, then we're gonna add in our Tang Yuan. Because these are so delicate, when it's boiling, I'm gonna bring it down to about a simmer. So it's still gonna be heating everything up, still bubbling, but I don't want it too hot. After these have been dropped inside, once it comes back up to a boil, or once those are starting to rise, I'm gonna add in a little bit of cool water, so it goes back down. Then they'll come back up to the top, add cool water again. I'm gonna do that 3 times, kind of like when you're cooking up Chinese dumplings. Whatever I'm not using, I'm gonna put in this little dish and actually keep in the freezer. These freeze beautifully. It's so easy to cook them straight from frozen the exact same way. So whatever we're not eating today, which will be most of them, then we're gonna freeze and save them for a later date. Now, while that is working away, I wanna talk a little bit about sort of the broth or the soup that our Tangyuan are going to sit in. Sometimes if we're feeling particularly lazy, we will just add a little bit of sugar into either the broth here, or once we put it into a bowl ready to serve, we'll add some sugar in and stir it up, just for a little bit of extra sweetness. I've seen that you could also put in honey or ginger or brown sugar or any combination of those. So today we're gonna be doing some with ginger and brown sugar. Once our rice balls are done cooking, we're gonna very carefully scoop those out and put those to the side. And with some of the hot water that's remaining, maybe about 2 cups of hot water, we're gonna add in some sliced ginger. For this one, I gave it a quick little rinse so it's nice and clean, but I'm just gonna slice it up, leaving the peel on and everything. We're not eating the ginger. We're just gonna have that add some extra flavor into our broth. I'm also gonna add in a little bit of brown sugar. You could do brown sugar, you could do cane sugar, you could do honey, just something sweet to go inside, maybe about 2 tablespoons. So our rice balls are out. Right now we're gonna very quickly make our nice sweet broth. So I've got about 2 cups of water in the pot, just dropping in the ginger and brown sugar. And just mixing till everything is nicely incorporated. It doesn't need to come to a boil. We just want to heat everything up, make sure the sugar is dissolved, and then we can pour that over our rice balls. For this particular broth, it's all up to you how much you like ginger and how potent you want that ginger flavor coming through. You could let it simmer for about 15-20 minutes. You could go longer if you really like ginger. We've had it in here for about 5 to 10 minutes. Just heating everything up, very light simmer, and I can definitely taste that ginger coming through. And it's nice and sweet, but not sickly sweet. I think this is exactly where I want it. I can taste the ginger, I can taste the brown sugar, but it's not too much, and I definitely don't want that ginger to overpower our sweet rice balls. One of our Tang Yuan did pop open, so we have a little bit of black sesame as a garnish. It's just kind of all over in the broth, but nonetheless, it's gonna be delicious. I can't wait to dig in. Let's try it out. It's steaming, so maybe I'll just take a little bit of a bite so you can see what the inside looks like. Oh man, that is good. It's almost like the soup dumpling of dessert. You bite into it and all the flavor bursts out. It's so good. The rice flour is so nice and chewy. Almost like if you've had mochi or any kind of rice flour dessert before. It's got a nice chewiness to it, but it's super soft and it's not really gummy. I really do like the addition of the ginger and brown sugar broth. Now that I'm tasting it with the rice balls as well, you can almost get a little bit more of the ginger as an aftertaste. It pairs beautifully with this. It's really nice and you get a little bit of that heat from the ginger, but not too much. This was awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me in my kitchen today. I love getting to share some more Chinese recipes with you guys. Even though this is only my second attempt at making it, I think this turned out pretty well. If you do try to make this at home, don't forget to tag me on any and all social media. And while you're at it, don't forget to follow me along on Instagram. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of a teaser as to what's to come next, what we're cooking up in my kitchen, and I'll just show you what we're always eating because we snack a lot in here. If you like this video, don't forget to also like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell wherever it is so you don't miss a single upload. Comment down below what you want to see me make next. I can't wait to continue learning with you guys in my kitchen. Until next time, bye guys.